I just have to sit here so we don't lose the Discord?
No, that's at 6 o'clock.
Oh, time zones. Sorry.
Yeah, so we have after Dez's class, we have Spear v Sword and Board with Robin.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Time zones.
You're good. Yes, I will let you know. All right, I'm going to start the recording so that Dez, are you all good to go? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to get the recording started. Give me one moment. Record to the cloud. Alrighty, so we are starting screen. This is the first time I have ever done this, so please pardon.
Well, my first time too. And
I know, right? Everything. Wait, what is going on here? I want you to record, so it's recording. And then I need to share my content. Let's go to the website URL. Nope, that is not. I can't seem to screen share. Oh, there goes their share screen. Let's try that. Start. Okay, this might not be what I needed to do. Nope. Okay. Well, we are going to do this a different way then. Let's stop that real quick. Pardon me. So I'm just the official way we are at All You Need to Know About Armor by Dez Armstrong, and we are starting now.
am I here? All right. So it's Dez Armstrong, by the way. That's okay. So I had some stuff planned out, but because of the way that the power is working, we're going to change things up a little bit. So I'm going to turn the lights off and show you all some pictures on the monitor, and we'll walk through that together. And then I'll show you the actual examples and tell you why things are the way they are and what makes armor good versus bad. So I'm going to kill the lights, and hopefully we can all see the screen together. Let's see. Can everybody see that pretty okay? My screen is tiny here. Good? All right. So walking through time here, we're starting off with the Romans. That's a lorca. We always had helmets. Another thing that we would have would be baser materials to defend against like cold or wet. That's where armor really starts, is clothing, and then moves from there into things to prevent maybe a dog bite. And then we go on, as the evolution of weapons happens, the armor evolves as well. So this is basically as far back as we can go. The lorca really doesn't provide a lot of protection, being small bands of metal. When it takes impacts, it really just bends out of the way. There's a lot of people like myself that don't believe it was even made of metal, but that more times than not, it was made of leather. Continuing to the next slide. Chainmail, I didn't really do up anything special for chain because I think we all know what chainmail looks like. So that's what that is. Of course, chainmail stops things from getting cut. It does not stop things from getting crushed. So even if you're not getting cut by the sword, it still gets, like a baseball bat. It kind of sucks. All right, continuing on. Spangen helms. That was our first evolution of helmet. It's multiple small panels contained in a central ring that kind of contains everything as one unit. I've got one. I'll show you how the inside of that works, and air suspensions. Like I said, we're moving through this pretty quick because I don't know if y'all can see super well. All right, brigandine. Let's see if I can actually zoom in on that. This is a piece of real brigandine. This would be around the 800s. Now, brigandine is cloth or leather with metal in between it. Let me get out of y'all's way. I just realized I'm in the way. So this one is leather with the plates in beside. You really can't see too well from the picture, I imagine, but there's little rivets holding all those plates together. The whole thing weighs about 6 pounds. Continuing on. All right, barrel helms, pushing into transitional and crusade periods. That puts us around the 1200s to 13s, maybe even into the close to 14s. Again, we're still on multiple plates to make the unit. Let's see. Oh, wrong button. There we go. All right, now we're getting into transitional armor, and that would be 1400s. And that's where we start to get our first real components. You've got your breastplates, you've got your vambraces and elbows. As far as the names go, a lot of people will use names that are more complicated to sound smart. That would be your paulines and coiters for elbows and knee cops. Both of those words are Italian and French for elbow cop and knee cop. So just use elbow cop and knee cop. We're all English here. Your breastplate and backplate, again, you've got fun words that you can use, but it's a breastplate. Helmets get a little different because helmets are very different from their region and time period, and they do have different names associated with those. This type of helmet is a bassinet. That's spelled B-A-S-S-E-N-N-E-T, but the T is silent. Here's an explosion of the bassinet. Now, the visor portion hinges so that it can come off. The reason for that is when you were fighting in the period, it was great for deflecting arrows away. You'll notice all armor comes to peaks and points. That's to help with deflection. As those arrows come in, it pushes it away from the face, which is great. The eye sockets even push out, which when it catches that arrow, pushes it again away from the face. But when you get in close, you need to be able to see. So these didn't have a lot of visibility because of the way they were built. You would just take the visor off entirely, throw it on the ground, and go about clubbing the other person in the face. All right, continuing on. This just shows how the mantle attaches to the bassinet. You can see it wraps all the way around. On the inside, again, there's a basket liner, which gives you an air bubble between the metal shell and your skull. And there's another picture of it, which, there we go. All right. So shooting into, again, about the 1400s, this is a Milanese suit. This is where we first start to get full suits with head-to-toe armor. The helmet is called a barboot. The shoulders are pauldrons. You've also got spalders. They're a smaller type of arm that gives you more flexibility. Let's see if I can zoom in on it there. There we go. So that is a pauldron. This is a pauldron. They are both pauldrons. Spalders I'll show you later. These breastplates are separated by a piece. This is not for flexibility as much as it was metal was very hard to come by as large pieces and large components. So at the period, they didn't have the ability to have a huge piece of metal. So a lot of things were kind of smaller and just put together, which is one of the reasons it's like that. The back is done the same way. A lot of breastplates have this little clip on them. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that attaches a lance rest, which holds a jousting lance if you were to joust. In this period, the gauntlets didn't have a lot of flexibility. It's almost one piece here. Sometimes they're split, but this one I think is one part. And the mittens, they don't give a lot of dexterity to the hand. This portion here is called a fald. And if you notice, the breastplate comes to about below the ribs, but around the navel area. You can see from where the elbows fall, if you looked at your arm held down, that's about where your center line is. Coming down, these are your cuisses. That is the portion from your upper thigh to the knee. Then you have your knee top, and then your greaves. They don't have a lot of sabatons in this period. Sabatons are the foot portion, but they do have chainmail. Moving forward to about the 1420s, 1450s, we get to the Gothic. Gothic has salets for helmets, bevers for the face. Again, we've got pauldrons. The breastplate's basically the same. Everything else is basically the same, but you see a lot of fluting. The fluting was done so that it would be more rigid. Tempering processes weren't quite there yet. So to counter this, you flute the metal, that is to put an embossed raise and drop. By doing that, instead of having a piece of metal that is the thickness of a penny across your chest, you have a thickness of a penny, but you've bent it up and back down, which gives you something more like the thickness of a 1/4 inch. So it's a lot more protection without increasing your weight. A suit like this would weigh somewhere around 50 pounds head to toe. Also, armor followed along with the decoration and the garb of the period. They had pointy shoes, so they have pointy shoes on the Gothic. Lots of flowery, so there's lots of flowery in the Gothic armor. Now, another thing about those pointy shoes, this one does not show them, but there's also pointy and very long, starts with an S, spurs. That is for mounted combat. Your toes and spurs were so long that you could reach and maneuver the horse, but still use both of your hands. Let's see, this is Maximilian. Maximilian is denoted by all the fluting in it. Again, this is not a very tempered piece. This is a fluting to correct material issues. Popularized by Emperor Maximilian, of course. And this would be around, again, the 1450s to 1500s. There are some examples that have fingers, but most of these are mitten gauntlets. And at the greaves, you'll see that there are no flutes. That is the lower leg portions here. That's common because stockings didn't have decoration to them. So again, keeping up with the fabric dressings of the time. This is a joust harness. This is a shesh helm, which just means a jousting helmet or a frog's mouth helmet. Kind of looks like a frog. That's kind of cool, huh? Now, this was for the joust, so you're intended to take a lance hit to your left side, which is why we've got the big shield bolted on or laced on to the suit itself. At the bottom here, this is a chevron. This is for the horse's head. All right, this is a low-res example of low-quality armor. This is what would be called munitions-grade armor. It's important because a lot of the things we see in museums are more times the higher quality pieces. This is more like what someone would use going into battle, because the 100 people on the field, the 10,000 people on the field, they don't have the money to buy a suit of armor, which costs as much as a farm. They do have enough to get some piece of junk that might keep them from dying. All right, this is a drawing of a tauntlet suit. This would be somewhere in the 1550s, thereabout, 16th century. And this shows some of the different components that could be put on as a part of exchange. Exchange is something that happens when maybe you want to go to a joust or you're going to a tournament and the rules are a little different, so it might be better for you to have a different setup for your gear itself. And then there's the real suit. Get that pointer out of the way. And again, this one has a fold that comes out much like a skirt. or like a kilt. Continuing forward. All right, and then here we are at what we all consider to be a suit of armor, a traditional, normal suit of armor. This is a round suit because they got around to it. That's not really why, but there you go. This would be around the 1550s up to the 16th century, even past that. It's got all your basic components. You've got your lance rest there on the left. And let's see. If I'm moving too fast, let me know. I'm trying to get to daylight again. Here's another suit. Same kind of a thing. I did want to point out that there are little differences, but they are still the same type of suit. The cuisses, for instance, that is the upper thigh to the knee. This is more segmented than the last. It really doesn't affect too much in practice, but it may be a little more comfortable in certain situations, and it sure looks a lot nicer. And then here's that same suit with its jousting rig attached. Without the joust harness, this goes to about 60 pounds head to toe. With the joust harness components, it shoots up to 85 to 100 pounds, depending on the suit. I do not have the actual weights of this suit. And then here is the George Clifford suit, which has all the different components exploded for everybody to see. On the left, we have a chevron, that is the horse head. Underneath that is the saddle components. On the right, we have the wrapper and the grand guard, which are the joust portions, and an exchange helmet for maybe a different tournament example. And then those round portions, of course, are for the lance. As we push into the future, because firearms become more and more relevant, full armor becomes less and less relevant. So you'll notice that everything starts to get smaller as far as the armor portions can go. We get larger tassets here. The tassets are the portion that covers the lowers here, the upper thighs. We lose the cuisses in exchange for the larger tassets. The breastplates get longer, and the helmets get more open. This is so you can see to shoot your gun. You can grab your lances. You're not worried about getting in a lot of combat because we've extended the range now, and no one wants to die to a lance. This is a 3/4 harness, again around that 1600, 1650 range. It does look quite fancy, and this one is fairly nice, but often these were for your ground troops, your people who couldn't afford very, very nice things. And again, we've got lower legs. We've got some gappage here at the elbows, and the Almain collars run all the way down instead of being separate pieces, which reduces your flexibility, but it does make things cheaper to mass produce. And then we shoot into the 17th century, where we get the thicker breastplates to deal with bullets. You'll notice the helmet has a bar grill on it. That is historically accurate. Don't let anybody tell you differently. All right, and this one I just threw in there because I know I cross-game into a lot of things, and I'm told the bar grills are not historically accurate. Here is a historically accurate, grossly bar-grilled up helmet. This was used for tournaments, and I have to imagine it was very comfortable to see out of. I did include a couple that are just here to look at and be pretty. This is more or less a parade piece. I don't believe this was ever intended to be fought in, but if you know what a Landsknecht is, or if you want to look them up, the garb looks very similar to this, which is why I included it in the slide. Now, these arms, every one of these components is a ball and socket connection. So it rotates and articulates in every which way. It's very fancy. This is a helmet made by Negroli. He's an Italian, and this is a very nice piece. I included it to show that you can decorate a piece of metal extremely well if you desire to do so. Most people do not, because it is very hard. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, I have a lot more things I can show you at some point. This is just a little diagram showing what we just talked about, starting in the 600s and moving forward, gaining material, going into crusades, starting to see full suits, and then as we come forward more in history, we drop down to smaller and smaller components until we take armor and stop altogether. Same thing happens with helmets. Again, we move forward through time, and the helmets get larger and larger, more complex, until they stop being helmets and disappear. Same thing with breastplates. Again, I can send you all these if you're interested in this kind of thing. I know it's kind of hard to see in the format that we're working with right now. And then gauntlets have the same deal, and we're back to the first square. So let me turn the lights back on and show y'all some things. All right, flip that around. There we go. All right. So going over things, let me grab first this. So this is a piece of brigadine. It's got a lot of flexibility to it, because that's how brigadine works. These are metal plates inside of the leather. Let's rotate this to where maybe it's a little better. There. All right, again, this weighs about 6 pounds, and this is the start of breastplates. All right, now, something that is hard to see in pictures that I'm going to pull up for you right here. This is a gorget. Now, a gorget is a piece that goes around the throat. It's got a little step here. Sometimes they have a larger step. That's so that when a sword comes in, it glances up and stops and doesn't stab you in the throat. And now this provides two things. You put it on. I'm not going to put it on because I've got other stuff to do. But when you put it on, this goes on first and then the breastplate. It helps to support the weight across the shoulders. And then it takes care of your arms, and everything else hangs off of this piece. If you put this on after your breastplate, it does not protect you from a sword coming in because it glances under and you're still dead. And it does not take care of that weight issue that you're going to have. If you've ever worn armor and you said, oh, wow, this is so uncomfortable, how did they do that? It's because you're not wearing your gorget right. I see this constantly, so I'm making a big stink about it. Lots of different kinds of gorgets. You can get very fancy ones. This one is embossed. They all do the same basic thing. Protect the throat and support the body armor. Let's see. Let's grab a helmet here. All right. So helmets. This is a Spangen helm. I told you I'd show you all this. This is multiple panels held together by a band. And then another band. All helmets should have a liner. And normally there's going to be an air bubble in between here because the liner keeps it off of your head. And even sometimes they'll put padding in between the liner and the helmet itself. That's so that it kind of protects you when you take that impact. If you've ever held a piece of something in your hand and hit it, you take that energy into you. But if you've got some kind of a void between that piece and you, that impact doesn't impart the energy to you directly. So that's why that padding is there. Just like you'd wear a gambeson under armor. I don't have a gambeson out here, but a gambeson is a thick padded garment. All right, let's see. What else do I have laying around here? All right. So a barrel helm, which we briefly talked about. These guys, again, this run of rivets running around supports your liner. This one does not have a liner. This is a museum piece, but that's what that originally was intended to do. And those liners, again, are important to keep your head from breaking when you get hit by things. All right, now moving down the body, this is a poorly constructed Indian pauldron. They make these things by the million, and they don't function properly. You can buy them on eBay or wherever else for about $100, but the reason they're so cheap is they don't work right, and then it makes people unhappy and it makes you uncomfortable when you wear it. The reason that is there's no connecting portions here. This just flops all over the place, and because of that, you're not really gaining any protection. Also, it's so big that when it's on a human, it just gaps up, and there's no control to it. It pops you in the head. It's just a miserable experience. What you are looking for is something that's actually shaped like a shoulder. Now, this one's pinned. This is apart from my museum, so it doesn't move like it would. But normally there's leather strapping in the front, which allows for articulation up and down. But there are pins in the back to keep this all maintained. That way your arm doesn't slop around. When it's on a human, it sits closer to the body. In the back, it sits closer, so you can feel that it's in the right spot. And because of its geometric shape, it holds on to the human frame instead of slopping all over the place and just not being efficient. All right. Now, this is a spalder. I'm going to grab that pauldron again. So a pauldron on the left is a lot larger than a spaldron, which is on the right. Spalder, sorry. Now, the spalder does have more flexibility in that it can fully collapse. And that's because we have solid rivets in the back and then leather strapping across the center. That allows for that articulation. This particular spalder has an elbow cop and a van brace attached to it. Those are detachable, but I left them together for this. And just briefly, I will move this back and slip my arm in here so you can see how this flexes and moves. There's really no pinching, no binding up. I can hug myself. I can do a high five, do whatever. Good armor flexes with the body. This is a different kind of spalder. This is munitions grade. This is the garbage stuff. But again, it's got a lot of flexibility because if it doesn't move more than the wearer, then it can get the wearer killed. These pieces were made a certain way at the period because they worked. If they didn't work, people wouldn't make them in that way. All right, moving down the body, moving down the body. All right, breastplates. So with your breastplate, this again is a bad breastplate. This is from India. I have these bad pieces to show people why things don't work. Now, this piece is too long. It's made for not anyone. And by that, I mean not anyone. No one can wear this. I'll just put this on here. And what this does is it prevents me from bending because your breastplate should stop right about here, right about where that elbow crook is. A more correct breastplate, like this one, stops higher, which allows for that flexibility. Some breastplates have what's called slotted gussets. That's these guys on the side that allow you to move your arms in and out and gives you more flexibility in the body. At the bottom, these are tassets. We talked about those already. They articulate in and they flex out so that when you walk, they cover your upper thigh. This is a cuisse. The cuisse is the part that goes from the knee to the thigh. Again, we've got a lot of flexibility in these, and they flex on the outside, not the inside, again, because they are riveted pinned on the outside. The inside compresses so that when you sit in a saddle, it allows it to move out of the way and not neuter you. All right. Toss that away. All right. Greaves and sabatons. So this is a properly made greave. As it comes down, it takes the shape of the leg. Now, a lot of greaves that you buy in India are what's called gutter greaves. And it's just this portion that stops flat and rotates around. They do that because it's easier to manufacture, and that means, of course, that it's cheaper. The problem is when you wear that, it's going to drive into the top of your foot and cause pain. So when it's not shaped right, you're going to have issues. So if you're making these at home, make sure to form it out. Let's see. Okay. All right. And gauntlets, I know we cannot wear these in the game, but they are a part of armor, and they're one of the more flexible components. This piece will move more than I can, so I am going to take it off and flex it on the table. But this is a 16th century bridal gauntlet. We've got separated fingers, articulations. And the reason I'm pulling this out is to show that flexibility should not be a problem in any armor that you wear. Everything that you see will flex more than a human can, as far as museums go. This is a sabaton, and we've got the foot, the upper portion, and as you move, it'll compress and bend out more than you can. And that's all to say that, armor is flexible, and don't let anybody tell you different. If it doesn't flex, then it's not made right. All right, so I'm under the impression that I can take questions, but I don't know how to do that. So if y'all have questions. Keeping in mind things like, okay, so I got the first portion of the question, but it dropped off the end of it. So as far as armor for Belgrath, I would suggest things that are more minimal. You're only required to cover certain parts. You're not worried about your head. You're not worried about your neck, except for arrows, and you can't wear a metal helmet. So get a leather piece that's as thin as humanly possible, and throw that on and be good. As far as the arm components go, I would definitely go with something spaldery. Whoops. Well, I would definitely go with something spaldery like this, because it gives you the best range of motion and it stays out of your way the most. As far as the arms go, I mean, if you're worried about actually getting hurt, then yes, go to metals. If you're not worried about getting hurt, just use a leather bracer. It's easier, it's cheaper, it's faster. As far as the upper portion though, I would definitely go with metal because it's more flexible than the leather can be. Same thing with the cuisse. The cuisse is not really that important. I would go to leather for that. The greave, I would also go to leather because it's just easier to manufacture and it's easier to do. Anybody else? Oh, all right. For the torso, if you're actually worried about getting hit by something, like a lot of people are worried about reds and things like that, I would go to a full metal breastplate. And I would go to one that's made correctly. That'll have that larger belly in it. That's so that when you bend, you've got expansion room for your organs. But yeah, I would probably always go to a metal breastplate. If cost is a concern, I'd probably go to chainmail, because you can pick up a chainmail shirt for pretty cheap, and it really doesn't add that much more weight. You've got a breastplate in metal that'll weigh about 8 pounds, or you get a chainmail shirt that weighs 20. Your leather's going to weigh about 8 pounds anyway, so you don't really gain anything there. Oh, well, I started armoring 20 years ago because I was doing Amp Guard at the time, and you get way more points of armor in Amp Guard than you do in Dagger in Bell. So it was way worth getting some armor. I actually built my first piece out of my dad's lawnmower, and yeah, after that, I fell in with the Texas Renaissance Festival and became their armorer. And I've been doing the Texas Renaissance Festival now for 20 years. The pieces I've been showing are from my personal museum and the museum at the Texas Renaissance Festival. Any other thoughts or questions? If not, I'll start digging out some other things to play with. All right, so let's pull this over here and just explain to y'all what this is and why it's cool. So this is a helmet from 1420 to 1450. It's a Maximilian closed Sallet. Now, this is a real piece, and I'm really delicate with it, but I pulled it over to show that there are some pretty impressive mechanical pieces and functions in armor. This is a spring latch, which holds this up. It can push in and drop it back down. These are all held together by screws. They had threaded screws and nuts back in the 1300s even. The wing nut was invented around 1400. We've got clasps, which I don't want to get into there. Now, on the back here, I don't know if I can get it close enough for y'all to see, but these rivets are slotted, which allows the armor to move in and out, which allows for when you move your head for the helmet to shift and take that shape for you. In the front, and this has been replaced over time, this is a leather strapping, which allows for the flexibility in the collar. Now, this helmet was made in two pieces, a left portion and a right portion, and then forge welded down the center. Forge welding is a process where you heat up the metal really hot, and then you hammer it together until it sticks. It's very technical. Actually, it is very technical, but it sounds very mundane. It's also forge welded here along the bottom, right down here. Now, my camera is probably not good enough, and it's definitely too small for me to see what I'm showing you. But we've even got roping in here. The roping at the time would have been done by either chisels or files. And that's actually how I still have to do it today. This roping was done by chisel. You can tell because of the way that it was put in. And then these grooves, the flutes, each of these flutes is hand chiseled also. You can see where the chisel pushes it up and then pushes it back in. Again, that is to increase the rigidity of that portion of the metal, which makes this harder or feel like it's thicker even though it's not. Let's see. Any other questions so far? See, usually I have a live audience when I'm doing this, so I can bounce back and forth with people. So I burn off the immediate things and then get into what people actually want to know. Okay, coat of plates. So I'm going to pull my brigadine back over here. All right, so more or less, you've got your exterior shell. And to make your shell, you can take a, you wanted to make one, right? That's the goal? Awesome. And I'll get to your other question there in a second. All right, so to make one, what you'd want to do is take your t-shirt as a pattern, lay it out. You can, I would do it without the sleeves, just for the first couple, get you kind of used to how things go, and it makes it easier for you in the long run. You'll want to have an ability to sew. I'm sure if you don't, someone will be able to help you with that. So take that t-shirt, lay it out, and then get some poster board and cut small panels. There are easy ways and hard ways to do it. The easiest thing to do is to cut little pieces that are, say, 1 inch by 2 inch and lay them all out, just stacked up, and that'll give you a nice body to work with. As you get more complicated, you can get into overlaying the plates and making them different sizes. If you look at a lot of the real examples, because again, things in the museums are higher quality than things that would have been lost to time during war. A lot of the higher end examples have different size plates. It almost looks like a puzzle coming together to put, you know, the full unit. And you can do that. It's just I wouldn't do it for my first project. Also, if you need to get metal, it's easier to use new metal than it is to use scrap metal, because the scrap metal, you don't know what it's going to be. Steel is not always the same thing. You can have mild steel, you can have high carbon steel, you can have high carbon steel that's annealed so that it's softer than mild steel. So there's all these different ranges of materials, and without knowing what it is, it might make your life hard and miserable. And what tends to happen is people try it with something hard and then they don't want to continue because they used the wrong stuff the first time, and it's just a miserable experience. So to make your experience better, go down to the Lowe's or the Home Depot, or if you've got a local metal fabrication shop that will sell you some material, get a piece of metal, cut it apart, and put it together, knowing that it's, you know, something you can work with. Well, a lot of people are going to tell you that you're going to probably want to go with spring steel or stainless, and there's no problem with that. But we're playing a LARP game. It's a small plate, and the smaller your plate gets, the harder it's going to be to deform. For a coat of plates, I would say go with 16 or 18 gauge at the minimum. And if you were to take that same plate and before you put it into your material, just drive a flute line right down the middle of them, or put some shape into it with a hammer, just a little bit. That small bit of shaping will make it so much more rigid that you won't have to worry about going to a thicker gauge or to a better quality material. So I would use mild. Now, as far as cutting it goes, I use what's called a Beverly shear. It's basically a very, very large set of tin snips. I do know a lot of people that use band saws and things like that, but I don't care for them because they are dangerous, they're loud, they're expensive to replace the blades on, and I mean, you can't get the detail that you can out of a Beverly shear. So go for a Beverly shear. Don't get a real Beverly. They're very expensive. Get a knockoff you can pick them up at Harbor Freight for about $100. Yeah, that's what it is. Just a little bit of shaping, and that'll get you where you need to go. If you have a picture and you want to send it to me, I don't know if you can send it to me through this, but I can even help you develop a pattern and figure that out. Happy to help with any kind of projects. Sounds good. Any other questions from anybody? No problem.
Is there anything else that you have planned to talk about, Deez, or are we ending here?
I guess if there's nobody else has any questions, we're done.
Okay. Well, I will give it another minute to see if anybody is typing anything, or at this point, if you want, just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in. Oh, here we go.
All right, developing patterns for a leather helm. All right, so what you're going to want to do is decide what kind of leather helm you're going to go with. There's a couple of options you can go with already. If you check out Prince Armoury, that's a .com somewhere there, you'll be able to find free patterns for helmets. You can also check out armourarchive.com or .org, I believe, and you'll have patterns there. Now, if you want to develop your own, there's a lot of ways I can help you with that, but without knowing what kind of helmet you want to make, I'd be steering you all kinds of wrong directions for sure. Space Marine helmet. Okay. Well, we're on my phone right now, so I don't know what that is, but I'll be happy to help you if you can send me a picture. Oh, Darth Vader? All right. The easiest thing to do if you're trying to replicate a Darth Vader helm would be to go get a toy Darth Vader helm and cut out pieces of cardboard, kind of shape it to that. And once you get it reasonably close, you can build your pattern off of those cutouts. No problem.
All right, Deez, did you just want to end it on here, or did you want anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess-
Okay.
I guess we're
Wonderful.
done then.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was. I know I was kind of in and out a little bit, kind of running a couple different things at once.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But that was pretty wonderful, and I'm excited for that recording. So I am now going to stop that. And there we go. Lovely. Awesome. Thank you everybody for coming in. Thank you, Deez, for that wonderful presentation. That was